Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 156, sponsored by Kienda. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Rory Summers. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a special episode for you today. It is not the best games of the year. It's not the most anticipated games of the year. It's not the UK Games Expo. It's not Essen. This is the episode where we're going to start off by talking about the fact the clocks have gone backwards. So we're going to have the annual PHC grumble about the fact that ain't it getting dark out early now? Go on, Andy, lead the way. You're normally really good at this.
What, you mean whinging? Yeah.
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 I didn't mind it, actually. I got an extra hour's kip. It was brilliant. Until the cats woke up and obviously don't appreciate that the clock's turning, so I got less of an hour's kip. But it was all right, actually, because I was at a birthday party over the weekend and I could have done with the extra sleep, so I was actually quite thankful for it. It was all right. Actually, no, I lie. I did get an extra hour's kip because the cats weren't there, because this was Saturday night, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I did get, and I got an extra hour's kip. It's all good. No whinging from me. I don't mind it.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, that's half of our content for this episode.
There you go, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's pissed in your chips, hasn't it, Summers?
A little bit. I thought we were going to get a good 5 minutes of content out of that.
No. Well, as a penance then, or as a to make up for your to the sad lacking of whinging, I'm going to go full positive. I'm going to go Rory and be positive.
I love that I'm considered the positive person in this podcast.
You are. Well, Jesus, look, you got me and Steve to compare yourself with, and Grumpy Sid. So, you know, relatively speaking, you are. I was at Airecon West last weekend.
Ooh.
Formerly pool party, but it has been gobbled into the great behemoth that is the Airecon machine. They moved into the International Centre in Telford.
International Centre in Telford.
I know, it's a cut your tears, a contradiction in terms, certainly, yeah. Certainly, if nothing else, a misnomer. Hilariously, we were sharing the same centre, it's quite a big place, with a kind of Mr. Universe sort of muscle sort of show.
Surely you kept getting confused about who was in which area then, Andy.
I absolutely did, yeah. I mean, there was a load of, sort of fat blokes flexing and also some board gaming, yes. But at the same time, there was also a teenage gymnastics competition. So it had pretty much all ends of the spectrum, or triangle, I suppose, going on there. It was very, very confusing. But as a show went, it was quite good. So for anyone who went to or has been to Airecon Northwest, which was in Manchester earlier this year, I know you two didn't, but that was like one big hall with a couple of things at the side. And somehow I still managed to buy stuff from Element Games. This was kind of 3 halls, so fairly large conference halls, nowhere near on the scale of like Airecon in Harrogate. But it was 2 sort of large board gaming halls with the sort of standard sort of table affairs that you get, with a corridor in the middle, and then in the middle was another hall with a few exhibitors, including Games Law and also Tooth in Coats, who may be making an appearance later.
But all in all, though, you had a lovely good time at Airecon West, I take it, mate.
We did. It was very good, very peaceful. A little quieter than we were expecting, especially on the Friday, but we kind of put that down to it being a working day. The Saturday was a lot busier, and it quietened down a little bit on the Sunday, but it was very pleasant, quiet. The food was all right. But it wasn't anywhere of the scale of the Harrogate set, so there wasn't any sort of outside food trucks or anything. We had the food in the conference centre, or if you knew you were in Telford, a cheeky 5-minute walk to a Wagamama's.
Nice. Can I ask a question? Is Airecon West and I suppose Airecon Northwest, are they both this? Right, I'm led to believe that Airecon is a very family-friendly convention, the main one in Harrogate. Would you say that's true?
Yes. I mean, the whole thing is fairly friendly. I mean, I'm not really sure what you mean by family friendly. But I
remember Mark telling me when he did the first one, like there was a little creche for, I don't know whether it was just for his kid or...
Probably. I don't remember seeing a creche at any of the Aircons.
I suppose the question is...
I don't remember seeing any kids at the Aircon in Harrogate either.
No.
I wouldn't say it was
I'm just wondering whether
unfriendly.
next year I could take Logan and Marley with me. and whether they'd find a day out at Airecon West as kind of a good day out for them.
If they like playing board games, yes.
But it is just open.
It is literally
games,
just 2 rooms full of tables and a little room in the middle with exhibitors. So it's whilst it's not family unfriendly, there probably isn't much for the kids to do beyond playing games. So I shall leave you to that to your discretion as their parent.
No, fair enough,
but I mean, it's not family unfriendly. I don't think kids are turfed out, and I'm fairly sure there was a couple running around.
To give you an idea what it's like, Rory, we went to UK Games Expo and we stayed behind and went into the open gaming area.
Yeah.
And there was that room with the board game library in and then loads of long tables. Imagine Airecon is just that.
It's just that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically just placed somewhere where you can play games and there is an extensive board game library if you don't fancy bringing your own.
Yeah, pretty much,
Okay, fair enough. No, okay. Probably not ideal. I was wondering if it's like whether you're going to have exhibitors and people doing demos where I could take the kids to go see some kids' games, but I'm going to have to demo them, aren't I? Yeah.
Yes. It's not to the same. There are retailers there, some exhibitors, but they're nowhere near to the extent of Expo or something like that. It's like the equivalent of one corner of one hall of Expo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. That's all my questions answered. Thank you very much. Should we move on to the next thing on the list, Andy, about your regrets?
Of which I have many, but recently I have decided that because I don't paint enough stuff, my pile of plastic is obviously dwindling now beneath
running out of stuff to paint here.
I am. I've hit the sub 500 miniature mark now, so I need to top up a little bit. Well, no, more seriously, as you know, I've had my eye on a stonking great tank, a Baneblade, for quite some time, and I've resisted this for a little bit, but I realised that, do you know what? In part of my miniature painting quest, I don't actually paint many vehicles. It's all sort of, actual folks with, big sticks and long cloaks mostly. So I thought, I'm going to break from the norm, and actually just thought, bollocks to it, I'm going to buy it. So I did. And it turned up, and I thought, wow, that's quite a lot larger than I was expecting. And
so this is the 40k scale Baneblade, not the epic scale Baneblade. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, yes, it is.
Lad.
It's an impressive model. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm going to hold up to you two now the size of literally just the turret of the top of it.
Jesus,
it's massive. My face for scale. And I've decided because, and I didn't know this when I bought it. Once I sort of opened the box, and there were literally 12, maybe 13 sprues in there.
Oh, dear God,
it's huge. It turns out there are actually 7 variants of this bloody great thing in one box. Mm-hmm. So I thought, in order to get maximum value out of this thing, I'll do the sensible thing and magnetise it so I can interchange all of these bits.
You are? Okay.
I am mad, yes. It's quite mad. Fortunately, there are a couple of videos online that have kind of given me a basis on how to approach this thing. It's not straightforward, but I'm getting there. But it is working, slowly. We'll see. I'm kind of in the middle of building sort of 5 of the 7 variants at the moment. But I've built like the sides of it and the base, and it's a good sort of 30 centimetres long. It's massive.
Wow.
And weighs quite a bit. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I don't know how I'm going to paint it or how long it's going to take.
That's actually going to be my next question. Have you decided how you're going to paint it yet? Have you come up with a colour scheme, or are you just going generic camouflage?
Probably that. I might add some battle damage to hide some of the scratches I put in it with the craft knife as I'm hacking it apart. But I'll call that, natural wear and tear. But it's an impressive piece of kit, and to be fair, it goes together quite well. I don't need to sort of modify any of the corners or anything to get it to fit, because, some models can be temperamental when they come off the sprue. But to be fair, to Games Workshop's credit, this has actually gone together quite well. The instructions are reasonably clear, although there's some unidentified spares on the sprues that I'm trying to find places to go. But other than that, it's been quite good. I am regretting it, of course, because it is a lot more complicated than I was expecting.
But you haven't even started painting yet.
Oh, God, no, I've still not finished building it yet.
You're going to have that huge area to paint. Lots of large, flat areas.
That's what an airbrush is for, mate.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to use an entire bottle of primer just to coat the bloody thing. It's absolutely enormous.
Are you intending to do anything else with this? Are you going to start collecting the rest of Imperial Guard to go with it, or is that it's going to just a it?
This is just it. Now, I've been told categorically that it is not staying anywhere visible because it is, quote, king ugly. I disagree. I think it's quite an impressive beast. Plus, I don't actually have a shelf on which to put it because all the shelves I've got are quite narrow, and this is not narrow. So
you haven't got big enough raw plugs in the wall to support it.
I need to put in like a piece of rebar in the plaster to try and support it. So, decoration and location to be confirmed, but I am quite enjoying it as a project.
Speaking of painting, though.
Ah, nice.
Now, I don't know when this video is going to go live, but we are in the process of editing a video, which is either going to come out just before or just after this podcast goes live. So please go check out the YouTube channel. But we have been given a miniature for Avalon, the Riven Veil, which is coming to Kickstarter on the 12th of November. And we got sent the starter set from Two Thin Coats. And we were set the challenge to try and paint this rather amazing little dragon miniature using only these starter paints. And everything's painted, everything's videoed. It's just me that has to go in and now edit everything together, thinking, I can edit stuff. Surely it's like editing the podcast. No, it's not. No, it's very different.
Video's hard.
Yeah. So my plan is for it to be up a week before the Kickstarter goes live. So it should be hopefully up the Tuesday after this podcast goes live. So please go and watch the video. But I think we've done a really quite interesting job. We've all done something slightly different with the paint jobs. Andy's not seen them all yet. So Andy's going to see them when the YouTube video goes live as well.
Well, I'm going to see Rory's.
I'm going to see Rory's.
I've seen yours.
I've seen mine, yeah. But yeah, I was quite impressed with the Two Thin Coats as well. I thought I was really pleased with them. I thought they worked really well. Nothing was too piss thin like some other paints. Like I'm currently trying to use a Viejo paint on a Kingdom Death model, and I'm on my 6th coat now.
Whoa!
Of this burgundy. I really wish I'd got something else.
Are you using a Game Air or something?
No, it's one of the Malefic paints, but I'm going on a black prime when I should have put some white on it. And I knew it was going to take 2 or 3 thin coats, but I think I'm on like 6 coats now, and I'm finally getting a nice even colour. It's only a cape, it's fine. It's not details. I'm not going to screw anything up, but yeah. These 2 thin coats, even though it says 2 thin coats, I reckon you could splodge on 1 thick coat and it worked quite well.
Thus undermining its name. But never mind, moving on.
Fantastic model, though, and very lovely paints. Very. I enjoyed the process of painting it. A great deal. Looking forward to the competition. So who's judging the competition? Is Jamie?
Well, I don't think we've actually got an official judge for the competition. The video is set up as a challenge rather than a competition.
Right, okay.
So there's no winner at the end. It's like, ta-da, here's what we did with just these paints.
Or we all win.
Well, everyone's a winner, Rory. The prize was the friends we made along the way.
Okay. I like...
He's just screwing his face with that friends. I don't make friends.
I have met people. That's as far as it goes.
What did you think of the paints, Andy? Because, I mean, me and Rory liked them, but we're not as fussy as you.
No, that's true. You're not. I generally found them to be okay. They were very smooth. They responded very, very well to things like flow enhancer. Yeah,
well, I did a little bit of airbrushing with them, and they went through my airbrush beautifully, which is amazing, because most things don't go through my airbrush at all.
Yes. No, I did airbrush them as well. They did go through. They thinned very, very nicely, and they didn't they didn't separate, which was nice, because you have to be careful when you're thinning them too much. I
was amazed, actually, with my wet palette. I came back a few days later, opened up the wet palette, and all the colours hadn't separated at all.
That's good.
Whereas I've got other colours. I've got like one brown I use. You come back after a day, and it's separated quite literally into green and red. and it's not like, it's slightly green and slightly red. No, it's like one definitely separate red pigment and one definitely separate green pigment. It's quite amazing. But these, kept their colour, so there must be a low pigment variation in the colours we've got.
You say that.
Oh. All right, then. Oh, some magic wizardry keeping it all together then.
That is more like it, yes.
Right, okay.
I did have a few problems with them, I won't lie. Nothing outrageous, and to be honest, nothing really great surprising given the style of paint they are. I found that the bottles are slightly annoying. Now, to be fair, these are petty niggles in the grand scheme of things. The bottles are quite irritating in the sense that they leaked quite a lot, but that is a consequence of the slightly larger hole in the top.
See, I thought that was just user error.
No, it's not.
No,
it's
okay.
The thing is, I will also caveat a lot of this by saying, I have talked to the chap one of the chaps at Two Thin Coats, at Airecon West, actually, to voice my opinion and concern. And we had a very long chat, actually. It was very, very, very pleasant. And he's let me into a few little tidbits of information in the sense that, yes, they are aware that the bottles can be slightly irritating. So that it's not an unknown problem. Now, one good thing is that these things come with an agitator inside, which is really good. So they mix really, really quickly. So there's a lot less arm breaking going on. The downside of that, of course, if you invert the bottle and try to pour the paint out, the ball fills the hole so it doesn't come out. So you've got to be very careful when you're pouring this stuff out. So, pros and cons. On the downside, things like, on the other hand, things like Vallejo and Scale Colour have the sort of the dropper bottles, which can obviously gum up with dry paint. So, you're screwed either way, really. So it doesn't really matter. As I say, these are very petty niggles.
I keep a pin, basically, in my paint kit to poke them. Oh, and the Scale Colour ones, I didn't realise every other paint bottle I've ever owned in my life has been pre-punctured.
I know where this is
apart
going.
From Scale Colour.
Yeah, I discovered
I can't
that
get the paint out.
Yeah. However, these are multi-pigment paints.
Okay.
And like multi-pigment paints, which, to be fair, isn't a great surprise because most hobby paints like this are multi-pigment, Vallejo and all the others. So these have got quite a lot of pigments in them, which is fine and par for the course. However, you can also, if you start mixing your paints, which is obviously something we had to do quite a lot given that we had such a limited range, can get some interesting results, unexpected results, when the pigments start to fight each other like they did with me. My biggest gripe is the black. I did not think the black was very good at all because I found it quite weak and I used it quite a lot to darken a lot of my paints up. You'll understand why when you see what I've painted. But when I was mixing it, I think it was brown and purple I was mixing it with. I just basically tried to use the black to darken the paint, as one does with black paint a lot of the time. Unfortunately, it is a multi-pigment paint. It is not a pure black, as I have been informed. And apparently, if I remember rightly, there is quite a lot of green in it, which fought quite a lot with the purple and gave me a very interesting shade of mauve.
Fair enough.
This is all just so far beyond me. I feel I did the Fisher-Price version of this model now.
I think that what Andy's complaints are probably advanced painting level because Andy owns like 6 different sets of paints.
This is very true. I do a lot of mixing.
Whereas most people are buying Two Thin Coats are kind of going, well, I'm fed up of playing Games Workshop money. I'm going to go buy something else.
Well, this is the thing. This is the other thing that I will have to caveat my comments with, that I am not, and I did say this to the Two Thin Coats chap, I am not the target audience for these paints because of the simple virtue that I don't own or use Citadel paints, and that is what they are targeted at. They are targeted at as an alternative to Citadel paints, mostly because Duncan Rhodes obviously used to wait for going to the workshop, etc., etc. And I said, not because I hate Citadel or anything like that, I simply don't own any, so I can't do a direct comparison between these and Citadel because I have no basis of comparison. I simply don't own any. So from that point of view, I'm not. So I am literally just commenting on them as paints compared to the ones I also have. But I mean, as paints go, taken in isolation, they were pretty good and they were nice to use. They were well behaved. They went on well. They mixed well. They blended well. They went through the airbrush well. So yes, taken in isolation, they were pretty good.
This painting challenge was in association with Avalon, the Riven Veil. And Avalon is hitting Kickstarter on 12th November. And some of us in this podcast have actually played Avalon, the Riven Veil. You have, haven't you, you lucky devils? We have. Now, we played it on the old tabletop simulator with Jamie, designer. Mm-hmm. Now, we didn't play because of the foibles of Tabletop Simulator and the fact that everything takes 4 times longer than it would in a real game, we didn't manage to fit in a full game in an evening. But that's more of an issue with Tabletop Simulator than the game itself. So Avalon is an area control game, based, of course, in Arthurian legend. And it's called The Mists of Avalon because the game board is actually shrouded in mist. And one of the things you're going to have to do during the game is reveal the map. So when you play the game, the map is going to be different every time. So the centre will be surrounded in this mist, and part of the actions you have to take is explore to reveal the middle of territories to give you more areas to control. The victory 6 conditions kind of way in which the game works is pretty standard. Dudes on the map, area control. You are looking to control as many of these areas as possible. Each one's worth a different amount of victory points. Each one gets you slightly different rewards. You're going to do this via multi-use cards. So a bit of the old Martin Wallace type of action here.
I love a multi-use card. We just don't see enough of it these days.
It's a lovely action, isn't it? It's a lovely system of multi-use cards. So these allow you to move, they allow you to bolster troops, they allow you to explore, which is what you need to actually explore the mists, but they also give you bonuses in combat and other action abilities. So, of course, if you spend all your cards moving, you're not going to have cards back to whack in front of you during a combat situation. We only managed to play a snippet, unfortunately. We didn't manage to get a full game. But I must say, I absolutely loved this. It ticked all the boxes. It felt, to me, like a next iteration of Blood Rage without the drafting. Ooh. Yeah, because it had lots of similar things. It had that idea of using rather than actions which you use in Blood Rage to move and bolster, you use the cards here, but they also had combat uses for the cards as well. You had the way in which a card might have the dragon, which is what this miniature we got, which, by the way, is a day one exclusive. If you want this dragon, you have to back the Kickstarter on the first day. And that dragon comes in and plumps on the board and causes chaos.
Yes, it does.
And and there are other units like that. The artwork for it is all absolutely beautiful. And what we've seen in the miniatures so far, I mean, we've seen one miniature, of course, because we've actually had it in our hands. It's a really cool mini. But what else we've seen is some of the minis have got this dual plastic.
Oh,
yes. The body of the mini is like a normal plastic, and then it'll have like a clear plastic effect, like flames or magic, which means they do look quite visually striking. It looks pretty cool.
Until you paint them.
Well, yeah, until you paint them. But as Jamie said, the majority of board gamers don't actually paint their minis, so here's a way of making them look cool without painting or without doing the old what is it, wash of a hose pipe like our Awakened Realms do. Sun drop.
Shade by hose pipe.
Yeah. Well, it must do, mustn't it? Because it's a production system, so it must
have you not seen it? Have you not seen how they do it?
No.
It's almost like, you've seen these sort of conveyor belts where they put like Cadbury's chocolate fingers on, and the chocolate comes down from below, from above, and it rinses down. It's a bit like that.
Bits of wash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially what it's a Zenithal Prime with a dark wash on it. It's essentially just like hose down, and that's it. It's quite impressive.
Well, yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I will be backing. I'm going to have to back day one because I need a card now for the dragon we've got. Because we've got the dragon miniatures to get the cards to use in the game. So I'm going to have to back day one just to get the card to use the miniature I've now painted.
Oh, dear, Steve. You'll have to back a Kickstarter on day one.
I have to back.
I think going into the UK Games Expo, we were already excited about this, weren't we? Because this is Jamie Jolly, this is Oathsworn, this is anew. From the bits that he teased ahead of this, it was something worth paying attention to.
Definitely. It's clever, that's the thing about it, and we do like clever on this podcast. Clever is good. I mean, we're not clever, but the games are.
I mean, it's weird. If you boil it down, it's not very original in that you can see where bits have come from other games. But as I said, it feels that, there's elements of Martin Wallace multi-use cards, elements of Blood Rage, but it doesn't need to be because it just worked. Everything meshed together and worked really well. And we got into it like, 2 turns in, we knew what we were doing, and, carefully looking at our cards going, well, if I want to go there, then I won't have this card when combat happens, and then I'm going to be screwed. So where am I going to attack?
Can I ask quite a pernickety question? Having not played it or looked at it in depth at the expo or anywhere else, you say it's you've got to clear the mist and that every game they're going to be different. So how is that physically represented on the board? Are they mist tiles that you then just flip over?
Yeah, they're tiles.
Yeah.
They're mist tiles that flip over. And what happens is that it's played over like 3 ages or eras. And at the end of each era, the mist comes back. So any troops in those mist regions are chucked out.
Yeah.
Oh. Which is your Ragnarok,
Yeah, which is your Ragnarok type of thing. So the outer regions, yeah, they're fine. You'll hold them. But the centre regions, which are generally worth more points, you've got to fight for again on the second and third rounds.
Okay.
So it means that it's not just it means it's going to be quite dynamic. It's going to change quite a lot as you play.
Okay, that does sound interesting.
And there was a rush to get like cards, like going to a certain area would get you like the dragon card. And so there was a rush then, while everyone's trying to get to that area to get the dragon on their side, because that's a really good card to have.
Yes, it was. Turn up, you lot, out. This is my dragon, out.
And we were getting really into it. I mean, as I said, we only played like the first age, but we were running out of space in some places. We were piling that many models into the fight, you know. And it wasn't overly finicky, the combat either.
No, it was quite straightforward. It was essentially, right, who's got most chaps? Right, you win that one. Who's got next most chaps? You win that one. Done. The rest of you, sling your hooks.
So it's very deterministic as well. I quite like deterministic combat.
Mostly, yes. I think, am I right in thinking you could chuck in a card or two for combat?
Well, yeah, so they used the cards for combat.
That's right,
you used the cards in combat to give you bonuses, but it wasn't like, oh, I've got 10, I'm rolling 10 dice.
No.
Oh, look, I've rolled all ones.
Or worse yet, Steve, just rolling 1 dice.
Well, yes, single dice resolution, we're not a fan.
It's never good. It's never good. So, yeah, you wouldn't necessarily know who's going to win outright because you don't know what your opponent had cards-wise, but in terms of chance based, no, it wasn't. There was no random chance involved in the combat. So if you went in and stacked the odds in your favour, you were probably going to win, as it were. Which
is what I think combat war games should be. If you stack the odds in your favour, you should be in the highest chance of winning it. So
yes.
See, I do like, though, a game where you can go in with one ship and just get a lucky dice roll.
Yeah, I do like a Hail Mary, but
yeah.
It shouldn't swing a whole combat.
It shouldn't win every time. Yeah, it should be like a case of, like, if I roll a 6 and you roll a 1, I'm good. But yeah. So that's Avalon, the Riven Veil. As I said, our video will be up soonish. Please give us a watch and go check out the Kickstarter, which is going to be on 12th of November. I'll put a link in the show notes, of course. When Andy got this dragon miniature, he felt like a boss.
There we go.
Did he?
I was waiting for this.
Did he feel like a big boss?
What?
He did feel like a big boss.
What kind of second-rate segue are you going to shoehorn into this?
You just wait for the next one, Sonny.
You got one ready for the next one? Because I haven't.
As long as it's worse than that one, we're okay. I'm meeting expectations.
Fair enough. Rory and I have actually been playing a little Wii game from which we picked up last year, and this is actually an old game. Is it like
1994?
94, which is a game of Big Boss from Funko Games.
Yeah.
Right. And it shows its age, but there is something delightfully fun about this. This is a game about building shares in companies. And it's unbelievably straightforward. On your turn, you can either buy a card or play a card, and that's it. And the cards are numbered 1 to 70.
Yeah.
And on the board are 70 spaces. And in a loop. It snakes around a bit to take up space, but it's a loop. So 70 is next to 1. If there's not a company on the area, you build a company. And you get these little plastic building blocks.
They're like really fancy, like semi-opaque Lego cubes, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You build them on and you pick a company, because you've got 8 companies to choose from. You pick a company, stick it on, and that company is now on the stock market and people can buy shares in that company. And if you have a card which is numbered next to that building, next to that spot, or on top of one thing that's already been built, you can add to that company. So you play the card, you put another building block on, the share price goes up based on what the height of the piece you've added was. You gain money for investing in that company, and then you can buy more shares.
That's it.
That's really it. That's the game. What's really interesting is because these buildings spread out, when two companies touch, they have a buyout, and the larger the company buys out the smaller company. So anyone that has shares in that smaller company has to sell all those shares at that current value, and then the larger company goes up in value by the value of that smaller company. So jumps up a considerable amount.
Yeah.
And basically, the aim of the game is just to have the most money at the end of the game, which generally means trying to buy the shares in the company that's going to be the biggest company at the end, at the beginning of the game, or trying to manipulate the game in some way to prevent certain companies going up and making sure your company you have shares in goes up. It's such a simple game, yet for some reason, I think it's a ridiculous amount of fun. I don't understand why I enjoy this game so much, because it's dumb.
But it's not dumb, because it's really clever. It gets to a point where you go, I've got 25. I've got the space that's separating these two companies. No, these two companies can't merge until I play this card. When do I do it? Or do I do it at all? And I've got to try and manipulate the market, make sure I've got shares now before it merges. Because I know that when, Kingdom absorbs Oasis, the Kingdom shares are going to go up by 15. And they become so much more valuable. But that's the really clever part of this game, and trying to guess or even trying to remember what cards people have bought. Because you've got this open market, but you can always buy blind as well. So it's like, I remember Steve picked up the 27, so he's pretty close to me. And you're right, it's dumb. And I think when we played, we talked about all the ways that this game could be cleverer, it could be fancier. But I think, like we talked about having a share in a market crash.
Well, yeah, for instance, one of the things is the share value never goes down. You can be bought out, but you never lose value on a share. And I think if you did a modern version of this game, you'd have like market crashes, which would cause the shares to go down or across the board, or you'd be more of a risk. But it's like you're always making money. It's just a question of when you're making money.
And it's the simplicity of this game. It's so straightforward. It's so easy to teach. And just even the concept of it is really easy to understand. It just goes and it just flows.
It sounds like a cross between Big City, which I have, which is literally just numbered spaces and you put onto which you put play cards to put buildings. So same idea there. It's not a track. It's like more like SimCity. It's a bit of an area. And Magnate, if you remember that one.
I do remember that one, and I think to a degree I see where you're coming from in this whole idea of buying shares and the values and stuff going up. But yes. This is simpler. This is like distilled.
Oh, sure.
I think Magnate overcomplicates that and makes it into something very different. But this is really simple. So if you put a building down, you can buy shares in any companies that exist. So you're already on that market. So whether you've got, I think when we played it, the third player had a really quite diverse portfolio, whereas I specialised in like 3 companies, and then I did everything I could to make sure that those companies were always the bigger of them. But wonderful, wonderful game, really simple. I think it is a bit long. I think that would be it kind of plays and it gets to a point where it's like, well, I just feel like I'm doing the same thing and nothing really is changing anymore.
I know what you mean. There is definitely a point. There does feel a point later in the game, especially when the deck, you're waiting for the deck to refresh.
Yeah.
Because once the deck refreshes, it goes over quite quick then, because all of a sudden the value of companies can jump up because you are almost guaranteed to get cards which have already been played, which means your price, your things go up. But yeah, there is a point when it just feels like it's treading water until those last few blocks go out. and everyone's just not holding on, because everyone's got cards that will stop the game getting stupid, or they want to hold on to the value of their shares. And I found a few times the game gets to the point where, because the maximum value of any share is only ever 50.
Yeah.
So you can get to the points where when like two 2 companies are already at 50, it feels like, well, maybe the game should stop when a certain amount of companies get to 50, not when the pieces run out. That's a really minor one.
But it is to me like that trajectory of kind of drama, of tension in the game. It's a slow burn. It peaks, and then it just kind of starts to dwindle. And it's kind of, actually, I want the game to I want it to reach its crescendo in tension and drama and excitement. And I want it to be over fairly soon after that. But it does kind of hit that point, and then it just tails off again. Which is the only thing. But I think that's kind of endemic of of how old it is. I mean, it's 30 odd years old, so. Yeah.
Interestingly, I've just looked on Board Game Geek. There's a re-implementation of it called Chart of the Golden Age, which came out in 2019. And it looks like a more advanced version. But it also looks like you can't buy it for love of money.
Yeah.
Apparently it was on Kickstarter. That one passed me by. I mean, it is the most boring cover of a game you've ever seen in your life, which could be where I put most people off. But there we go. Yes, that's Big Boss. It's really quite a simple game, but I don't know why, but I will happily play this again and again because I just found it unbelievably fun. And it looks impressive as well. When you've got all these buildings stacked up, you big city, these things stack up high as well, so you get quite high visual things. So yeah, really quite cool.
And for less than 30 quid as well, wasn't it? We worked out.
The current price of it, less than 30 quid.
It's an absolute belting game for 30 odd quid. So yeah, definitely check Big Boss out.
So, buildings. Found me link.
Yeah.
It's a shit link, but I found me link. In another game, you're building walls.
Yeah. What do buildings have? Okay. Buildings have walls.
walls, building of walls. And a game about building walls is Ezra and
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah. Ezra and Nehemiah. Now, this is actually one of our Kienda sponsor games. So this got sent to us by our show sponsor, Kienda. If you'd like to get this or any other game, and let's be fair, you can be buying games to listen to the podcast, go check out the link below or kienda.co.uk/Polyhedron Collider, and you'll get yourself a juicy discount.
Oosh.
Yeah. So Ezra and Nehemiah is a Garphill Games game, which is not part of their Cardinal Compass.
Shock horror.
Yeah, I know, which it is a bit of a shock, because how the hell on earth is Shem Phillips designing so many games? Because he releases one Cardinal Compass game a year, and now he's releasing games like this. So it looks slightly different, because it's a different artist. I believe it's his wife who's the artist, which is Sam Phillips. So it's not got the Maiko artwork. And this is a game about rebuilding walls of Jerusalem. I will say that, because it's very, very Euro-y. There are a lot of things to do in this game. I think the actual main mechanic of this is quite interesting, and I'd like to say unique, but someone's going to point out there's another game that exists which has got exactly the same mechanic. But what you're pondering...
Well, yeah, isn't it Paladins has the same?
Well...
No, Paladins has a similar mechanic.
Look at you two.
Well,
handbags out.
I think this game has got elements of about 4 or 5 of his trilogy-based games. It's got elements of Paladins, it's got elements of Viscounts, it's got elements of Scholars, it's got elements of Raiders, and I think it's got one more, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. So, yes, it's got elements of quite a few games. Oh, and what's the other one? Wayfarers. That one. Yes, 5. There you go.
I don't disagree with you, because there's definitely a DNA. You can tell it's a Shem Phillips game, but I think the central mechanic, which is the way in which you play cards, I think is unique, but I'm probably wrong. So you have 3 card slots on your player board, and you have 4 cards in your hand. And on each round of the game, which there are 3, you're going to play a total of 6 cards. And you have to play these so that no more than 2 cards are in one spot. All the cards have got coloured flags in the top corner, which is your Paladin's link, which are red, grey or blue. And when you play a card, you can then take a red, a blue or a grey action, and the power of that action is based on the number of flags visible in your little 3-card tableau.
The Viscount bit.
Yes. So when you play your second card onto a stack, you will cover up one of the previous cards, therefore changing what flags you have available. And the basic actions are, the grey actions allow you to clear rubble from the walls which surround the board, which is basically the resources, and allow you to build the walls, which get you lots of victory points. There's then red actions which allow you to put cubes into the temple,
Scholars.
or put the resources into a sacrificial temple, which gets you up another track, which gets you stuff as you go up the track.
Scholars again.
Yeah. The last one is actually, I think, where the real heart of the game is. The building is the main action of the game, but I think this is where the game gets interesting. Is there is a tech tree, and it's quite literally a tech tree, and the blue flags allow you to either move tents around a track, which gets you bonuses for every time tent moves, or a tech tree which gives you upgrades, which allows you to do actions better. And I say it's a tech tree because it's an inverted pyramid, and someone has to start from the bottom and build up, but you can quite literally use another person's patterns, stand on the shoulders of giants, and use other people's technology to jump to the next thing. And of course, the further you go up, the more it costs you to go there. And the final row of this little tech tree is actually end-game scoring bonuses.
Which is a very loose Wayfarer's mechanic. It's very loose analogy.
So the only other real thing is, at the end of every round, you took a card which gives you more flags. So as the game goes on, you will have more flags visible, which will give you more powerful actions. But you have effectively 6 different things you can do in a round, all of which have that beautiful Euro thing of, well, that will get you to do something which hopefully allows you to do something else. And you're trying to score victory points, of which you can do it via the putting materials into the temple, building walls, or researching technologies. I've now played this game several times. I think there are that many options in this game. I still don't know what I'm doing, and I still want to play the game again to explore this. I love this game. It fires off every heavy Euro thought in my head. I actually think... I think this year's going to be tough. I know we're coming up to November by the time this comes out now, and we need to be thinking about Game of the Year. This is a contender, I think.
Ooh, really?
But I also think it's a tough year this year.
Oh,
I think in the past,
it is.
I think we've had some corking games come out this year. But I think
I've got 3 on my list already, and it doesn't include this one. I think yes, because I played this 2-player with you, Steve, and I assume you two have played it as a 2-player as well.
We played it 3-player.
You played it 3, okay, so you've seen a bit more interaction, I guess, or at least people robbing the cards you want, more likely.
We didn't have much of that. I didn't have much of that.
I think there's enough wall sections on the board that doesn't happen too much, and the way in which there's gates as well, you can build walls and gates, and you want to try and clear around your gates because you and your opponent gets a bonus if your opponent builds near your gates. There's a little bit of that. It's the tech tree which I think is the really cutthroat one.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Because
I didn't find that cutthroat at all when we played last night.
It is because you
I didn't find it cutthroat because I owned the tech tree.
Well, yeah, but I was using you, for instance, to get to techs, and you went, "Oh, you bastard!" Because only one person can have each upgrade tech. So that's the potential, and because you don't have to have gone right from the bottom, you can add on to someone else's. It does mean it has that little bit of a Seven Wonders duel thing, whereby, well, no one took one upgrade because they knew as soon as someone took one upgrade when we last time we played, the next person was going to bag the next upgrade because it was a really good upgrade.
Yeah.
So there is that element to it, which more players means that goes quicker. But the game scales in which the number of areas where things are limited, apart from the tech tree, grows with the number of players.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think a 2-player game and a 4-player game are going to feel significantly different.
And that's kind of good in a way. Because there are some games obviously out there that really don't work at 2 or 4, you know. I can't disagree with anything you've said, Steve, to be honest, from the single playthrough I've had. It took me a little while to get my head around the cards, but once I did, I was like, oh, yeah. And that is clever. It really makes you think about what you want to... And the one thing I did notice, actually, which I think I pointed out at the time, which is clever and yet evil at the same time, it's almost like Shem's done this before and thought about what he's doing, is that the cards you took generally are very powerful in the sense that they give you extra flags, but also the action that they remove is the action that they best enhance, as it were. So, you know, if you can tuck the teacher, which will give you 3 blue flags, but at no other point are you going to be or 1 blue, it'll give you 1 extra blue flag. You're like, well, the one thing I want blue flags for is the teacher, and now he's tucked, and that's really quite irritating.
That's a great example. That's what I went with yesterday, because actually, if you took him early, I'm going to be scoring those points at the end of every round, which is going to just really magnify. But I'm also getting rid of the best card to do the blue action.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
It was clever. It was a fantastic dichotomy there. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. I like the game. I think when we finished playing it yesterday, I was a bit lukewarm on this, and I think I was lukewarm because I struggled to get key concepts of the game. I kept having to ask, so if I do grey, can I only do? And you, Steve, very patiently went, yes, Rory. It's the same answer I've given you for the last hour and a half. So it was, but for me, I really struggled with that one bit, and I think that was for me. It's the only Shem Phillip games that I haven't clicked with very quickly. I really enjoy it. I do want to play it again because I want to explore it, because there were certain things that I just didn't do at all and didn't do very well, and I'd like to kind of feel that out a bit more. But I think I struggled because it just took me, there was just one rule. There was just one rule that I just could not get.
It was the one location one, wasn't it? When you take a grey action, you can only do the entire grey action in one location. And you were like, well, can I not grab that cube and that cube?
No.
Like, no, the limitation is you have to take everything from that spot, and you have to build on that spot.
To be fair, Rory, I fell foul of that as well. You're not alone.
But it is, I think it falls into that great Euro thing. It's like, I can't do all of the things I want to do. And it's because I've got grey. Actually, if I put this grey, I can do a 6 power grey, but there's nothing on the board that I can do. But I can build there, but I need that one resource. But that resource is, I want to do these 2 things in one action, and I can't. And that frustrated me. And I kept thinking I was getting the rule wrong, and I didn't want to be missing that, and I just felt an idiot. No, I do want to play this game again. Thinking about it, it's a very good game.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I had one concern I have with it, with Steve at the time when we were discussing it afterwards. And I think generally I agree. I would like to play it again to explore it and poke it more, especially the thing on the left where you put...
where you put it in the temple.
Yeah.
Resource in the temple. Now, I would say that feels like a weak spot, because that only really works if multiple people are putting cubes in the temple. And I felt that the reward for doing that originally wasn't great. So that's the one thing everyone shied from, because everyone else you can see, someone's doing that and getting the reward. Whereas that one, the rewards I felt were quite small, so people weren't doing that.
And they're quite long they're quite long coming as well, those rewards, aren't they?
They're expensive for what you get. Now, I worked out, just a quick calculation, you can get something like 30 or 40 points if you totally monopolise it, but it is an expensive way of doing it. And you need to do other things as well, which cost you actions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it should be considered as an opportunistic thing rather than a core strategy. The one thing I am slightly concerned about is the issue I have with things like Windmill Valley and Sand, is that I think it's probably slightly unforgiving if you make a mistake early on against a reasonable player. I'm going to
point out a little story to you here, Andy.
Here we go.
It's unforgiving if you make a mistake later on as well.
Is it? There you go.
Because Mr. Summers should have won last night's game.
Should have.
Because he would have been a clear 10 points in the lead, but he forgot to get food for his workers.
Oops.
And therefore lost 10 victory points on the last round of the game.
And came second by 3 points.
Oops. That's not quite what I meant, but fair enough.
No, but it's got that engine building element. I neglected my engine. I focused so heavily on one thing. And I was like, I know I'm good. And that's it. I didn't do the maths properly, or didn't really understand the end game scoring. I went all in for that pyramid, the scholarly track. I was like, I'm going to make a load of points there. Am I going to make enough points to compensate for the points I know I'm going to lose elsewhere?
Yeah, sure.
And I didn't quite do that. I probably would have been better off by just going, let's not get that one more thing. Let's get some more feed.
Let's feed the staff.
Let's feed these scholars. These are just undernourished people working away in a scriptorum somewhere. So, I want to play it again and want to explore it a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's one I want to own, but I would happily play it again.
Yeah, I'm very happy that Steve owns it.
Yes. Yes.
I'm very. But yeah, nice, cracking little game.
Yeah, very enjoyable. Lots of thinking, lots of ways to play.
So that is Ezra and Nehemiah.
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah. I don't get it wrong. Nehemiah. I mean, write it down.
You've done it phonetically and everything.
And I can't even read my own phonetic writing, which is from Garphill Games and, of course, from our show sponsor, Kinder. You can buy it from there. Let's dip into the mailbag then, gents. So I want to pick a question. I've done a lot of talking. Someone should ask you the question.
Here's a good one, actually, from Simon. I think it's a relatively new question, but it's a quick and easy one, because the answer is yes.
Well, right, let's move on.
We don't.
Simon, the answer is yes.
I kind of do just want to leave it there now, actually.
Done.
We don't get many fresh releases at shows in the UK, as they're usually saved for the big American ones or Essen. But are most of the UK done at the UKGE? So yes, most of them are shown at the UKGE, but I would say that this year feels like it's been a bit different. This year, it feels like a lot of the stuff that was released at Origins in Gen Con and Essen got its first showing at the UK Games Expo. I'm thinking Shackleton Base. I'm thinking SETI. Duel for Middle-earth. These are all quite big releases this year at those conventions later in the year that we got the first glimpse of in the UK at EGE.
You've got to understand just how big Essen and Gen Con are. You know, UK Games Expo is now huge. Essen and Gen Con are still dwarfed. It's still dwarfed by Essen and Gen Con.
Yeah.
And so releasing a game at those conventions is a massive deal and always will be. So, yeah, a lot of games don't get released at Expo, but they do get shown off at Expo, which is where we get the advantage that we get to see them and play them and hype them up before we get to Essen, before we get to Gen Con.
And it does feel like this year was a lot better than previous years for that type of thing.
Yeah, when we played, Horror Neurons Express, which I think is one of the first time it got showed off in person.
In its entirety,
as you said. We played, as you said, we played Shackleton Base. There was some weird ones like Courtesans. Did Courtesans get released at Expo? Was it just before?
No, it was
Expo?
released at Expo. Loot was another one. I mean, all these are from Hachette.
And Courtesans is a corking little game.
It is, actually.
Played that when we went on holiday the other week, and I think that game is brilliant. Again, we're talking about Game of the Year. That's a little weak contender that's going to nip in, I think.
Ooh, you're playing your hand a bit here.
Steve, we've got stern competition for light Game of the Year as well. So.
I know.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, I think that's a pretty strong contender for light Game of the Year. Actually,
yeah, I think this has been quite a big. I think this has been a corking game, corking year for games.
I agree.
Yeah,
this is a 2016 year, I think.
Yeah. American Dave asks, what are some of the best examples of board games appearing in mainstream media? He provides some examples of Cones of Dunshire in Parks and Rec, Rune Wars in Orphan Black, Wingspan in Coronation Street, and my personal favourite, Hey Dougie.
Oh, that's brilliant, that. It's, I mean, you can tell they've been playing Twilight Imperium. But
I really want to get a board game, Hey Dougie board game badge now. I do.
Have you seen that episode, Rory?
No, I haven't.
Seriously, go into iPlayer. Fair dues, American Dave has said it's Series 3, Episode 4. It's available on iPlayer. Go watch it. Whoever wrote that plays Twilight Imperium and loves it.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's basically Dougie teaching the Scout kids how to play Twilight Imperium. Of course, they don't know how to play, so they come up with their own game.
Right, okay. Episode 48. Okay, I'll go and have a look at that.
Episode 48. It's Absolutely genius. And to be fair, Dave, you have said what is the best one. I don't think there will ever be a better one.
I would agree with that. I can't think of any, to be honest. I mean, to be honest, it's not really the sort of thing I look out for when I'm watching telly. And I don't actually watch that much telly anymore.
It's weird. Some people get obsessed with it, don't they? Oh, my hobby's on the telly. My favourite, have you ever played the Last of Us games?
I played the first one.
I can't remember if it's the first one. I think it's the second one. Basically, it has 40k under a different name.
Right.
Oh, really?
So when you actually because you're going through like abandoned houses because of the zombie outbreak, and occasionally you see like the miniatures on the shelves, and you go through one house and there's a little painting desk set up with all the minis still on there.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I always want the games that don't exist. I wanted that nuclear war game from RoboCop.
Oh, Nukem! Yes. Yes. That would be amazing. Nukem.
That's the one I always wanted.
While you're wearing that blue sunblock that basically gives you cancer instead of the sun. Yes. Oh, wasn't RoboCop awesome? I can't contribute to this one because I really have no idea.
I can't think of any off the top of my head actually. But yeah, I think Hey Dougie, I'm going to go watch the episode. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. So
Cockadrillo asks, if you could change anything about the board game industry, what would it be? And they also ask, name one thing a publisher is doing great that you'd like others to do as well.
Decent inserts. I know I do an award every year, and this is to basically try to get other publishers to make a decent and useful insert, because the number of inserts I've ripped out and replaced with baggies is really getting quite silly now. On the plus side, something that Endeavour Deep Sea has done, which we'll be covering in the future, is they use game trays, as I think they did for the first one. But this one doesn't use any plastic. It is a completely plastic-free game.
Oh.
Yeah, so all of the inserts that they make, I think, are some kind of sort of cardboard paper mache affair. They're solid, but they're not made of plastic, which I think is quite good, because I have a absolute hatred of shrink wrap. I hate it. I understand why it exists, but I don't like it. But there's, other than the shrink wrap the game's shipped in, it doesn't have any plastic in, which would be quite nice. So a little bit more environmentally friendly stuff would be quite good. I know it's an argument that, well, not many games end up in the sea, which is probably true, but still it'd be quite good. And also decent rule books.
See, I'm kind of against you there on an insert.
Really?
Yeah. I would rather it came with no insert whatsoever in most cases.
I think in most cases I would agree with you on that. I mean, if you're going to make an insert, do a good one, is what I'm saying.
But then I don't want to have to pay extra for the manufacturing and the design of an insert, which I don't really care about. I like a good insert, but I like to go, actually, this is a game I love. I'm going to go and buy a third-party insert for it to keep it more organised. But I want that to be my choice to be able to do that, because I don't want that for all games.
To answer the second question then, related, I think one thing the publisher's doing great that others I'd like to see others do is what Czech Games Edition CGE did with Cut and Horror, which was the rewood, environmentally friendly pieces, the rewood.
Oh yes.
So rather than using plastic, so it was wooden pieces that look like plastic. I thought that's something which has a lot of potential in the future.
And then further to that, to add on to that, sorry, Steve, is that they then went and shared that research and all that design publicly with all the other publishers, so that when Mighty Boards have done Rebirth, they've used the exact same process to make a plastic-free game using the rewood technology that CGE spearheaded.
That's pretty cool.
And
so it's already happening.
It's already
awesome.
happening. So other companies are picking it up, which I think is testament to what CGE did, was just so good. And then to share it, they could have kept it secret and go, look at how good we are, environmentally friendly, blah blah blah. But no, they want other people to get involved as well.
That's really good.
If the first question, which was if you could change anything about the board game industry, I am now fed up of the embiggification of expansions of especially Kickstarter games. And quite frankly, I think I'm taking efforts to try and stop it, because I'm not backing all the extra stuff on games anymore, because they just end up on the shelf, never get played. Like, I'll give you the example. We talked the other day about the Bloodborne board game. You know, it's a base game with something ridiculous like 8 expansions, which all came out when the game hit Kickstarter. And I might, in the entire time I own it, play one of those expansions. The rest are just going to sit there on the shelf and do absolutely bloody nothing because I don't have the time to play all this stuff. So I would like to see the end of that, personally.
No comment.
I think it's an interesting book because I like expansions for board games, but I like where an expansion kind of prolongs the game's life. Here's a game, and then a year later, 18 months, 2 years, then we'll do an expansion. I agree with that. I think that's great, especially when that expansion then really brings something new. So, as always, going Seven Wonders. The expansions to Seven Wonders really do something different.
Extends the life, yeah.
Extends the life. But they should not come out at the same time as the original game.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you do find, especially with the situations where Steve's mentioned, you do find that a lot of those expansions, in inverted commas, are more just different modules for the base game rather than something adds. I mean, Lords of Hellas is a great example there. As much as I like Lords of Hellas, a lot of the expansions there are just different statues, which do something slightly different. They don't actually change the game in a huge amount. Now, there is one big bloody great expansion, which involves Kronos, which is honestly a miniature about the size of this ridiculous tank I've got, but it's more of a campaign, so there is an element there. But yeah, it's true. I mean, a lot of the expansions, as they say, are little more than modules rather than something that, as you say, Rory, expands or it prolongs the game's life in any great meaningful way.
Right, so I think we've covered a lot today, guys. Painting
We have.
competition, loads of games.
Modelling, painting, games. We've solved the issues of the day.
Yeah.
Well, we've voiced an opinion on them at least.
Yes, we are. Solving is probably generous, but...
So yes, we will be back soon with another episode. Thank you very much for listening. Of course, we've been sponsored by Gender in this episode. If you'd like to go check them out, please do. It will get you a juicy discount on your next board game purchase. But thank you for listening. Please give us a review on iTunes or share us with your friends and give us a like on the socials. Speaking of the socials, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads as Polyhedron Collider and Board Game Geek Guild 2726. Until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Bye-bye. Sid's not here, is he? Forgot.
Oh, go check out the painting video.